Hey, running friends. Welcome to the Wrinkled Runner podcast. I'm Sherry, the Wrinkled Runner. I'm over 50 and I love to run wherever I go, but Buffalo, New York is my home. If you are looking to start to run or you're an older runner, this podcast is especially for you, so subscribe now. I love to help people get running and keep running. Hey there, runners. Welcome back to the Wrinkled Runner podcast. I'm your host, Sherry, and today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is running while on vacation. So whether you're exploring a new city or relaxing by the beach, we're going to dive into how you can keep up with your training while still enjoying some much-needed downtime. Running while traveling is a really cool way to experience new places, so let's get into it. One of the greatest things about being a runner is that you can take your sport with you wherever you go. My husband and I love to run when we're traveling, and it's one of our favorite ways to explore a new place because we have found so many hidden gems on our runs, and they're places that we never would have come across if we were just walking around the city, like doing a tour or following a kind of do-it-yourself tour of the touristy places, I guess. And we have found like little pockets of churches that are just in this little town square that's just a local thing that we've walked into in Italy. And the inside of the church, is stained glass and gold and absolutely beautiful. And some of these things we would never have even known existed had it not been for us going for a run. So if you're a planner and like to map out your runs ahead of time, there's some great apps that can help with that. Great Runs, All Trails, Strava, Garmin, MapMyRun. Those are just a few that we've used, but sometimes it's nice to just head out and see where the road takes you. But if you do like to plan things out a little bit more, I'll put in the show notes links to all of those apps in case you have not seen them before. Now, we do take a minute to check the area around the hotel or Airbnb or wherever we're staying to make sure that it's good for running, that we can just go out the door and go for a run. Trust me, if you're staying near an airport, for example, finding a decent running route can be nearly impossible a lot of times, especially if it's kind of in the airport vicinity. There's a lot of highways. Sometimes there's not even sidewalks. They're expecting you're going to be driving or taking a shuttle or whatever. So if that's important to you, then check that out before you book your hotel for where you're going to be going. So I have a packing list for running, and I have a packing list for everything. And it's pretty long, and I've been using it for over 20 years. And even though I travel a lot, I still go over it every single time, because forgetting something essential like running shoes or water if you're going, like water bottles if you're going somewhere that's really hot, can really mess up your plans and make it so that you can't run, or makes it a really big hassle if you have to go buy a new pair of running shoes or something. So I'm going to share my list in the show notes, and that can maybe trigger some things to help you make your own so that you don't forget anything. Another thing to think about is your training schedule if you're training for something. So I've traveled several times while training for marathons, so I know how tough it can be to stick to your plan. One thing I have learned is be flexible. On a cruise, I had to adjust my routine, and I'd have to hit the treadmill every morning at 6 a.m. to get my miles in. It wasn't ideal, but I made it work. But the thing that I did was kind of tweak what the long runs were going to be for that week surrounding that, so that I, didn't have a 20-miler on the treadmill in the middle of the ocean. And that's something you may have to think about way ahead of time before you go on vacation if you are going to be keeping up the training, because vacation is about relaxing. So don't let a missed run or a shortened workout stress you out. You're supposed to enjoy this time. So if something happens and your long run or whatever can't happen, don't sweat it. The key is to plan ahead, but be ready to adjust as needed. Missing a long run here or there is not going to make or break your training. And if it does, then your training isn't quite what it should be. So don't don't be that person where your entire day is ruined if you can't get that run in for one reason or another. You can adjust, and you can tweak things when you get back. This is a plug for coaching. This is where having a coach comes in really handy, because we can look at your overall schedule, look at your life, look at what you're doing, and tweak things as needed so you are getting that training in, even if you miss a long run or miss a track workout or whatever. So let's talk about safety. Running in an unfamiliar place can be exciting, but you have to be cautious. We don't want it too exciting. One of the first things I do when traveling is make sure that my phone works. International cell phone plans are pretty affordable these days, so having access to maps or GPS can save you if you get lost. I remember when I was in Paris, and for some reason I could run to the river really easily from my hotel. But even if I was keeping track of landmarks and everything, I could not make it back to save my life. So I would have to check that GPS every time. And, Paris is just spokes and wheels, and, nothing's gridded. And so that's an example of a city that I definitely recommend having access to GPS. It's also smart to carry some form of ID with you and the address of where you're staying. When I lived in Shanghai, I made sure to have my name and my address written in both English and Mandarin. That way, if I needed help, I could show someone my information. So on vacation, you should carry something similar. The name of your hotel, contact information for an emergency, and a working phone are all things that are good to have on you. Before heading out for a run, take a moment and learn about local customs or running etiquette in that particular country or city. They can have different rules or practices, and you want to make sure you fit in with the local runners and you're not sticking out like a sore thumb. And while you're looking up info, see if there's a race happening while you're in town. Destination races are a great way to combine travel and running. Even if you're not in race mode, joining a local 5K or 10K for fun can be a really unique experience and gets you to mingle with the locals on an entirely different level than as a tourist. So, speaking of unique experiences, I have a story from a trip I took to Paris. Now, I signed up for a running tour with Go Run Tours. I'll link that up in the show notes as well. And it was totally amazing. Honestly, I was nervous at first. I hemmed and hawed, and should I do this and should I not? But it ended up being one of the best things I have ever done while traveling. So here's how it works. You book a tour, and they have, for each city that they have these tours in, you can look up the mileages of the different kind of running tours that they have. So I did what was called a garden tour. So we were running from one garden to another in historical sections. We ran by the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower as we were on our way to these different gardens. But I was seeing things that I wouldn't normally have seen unless I was on this run with this local. He spoke English, and it was pouring rain that day, which also was super cool because it was hot. So it was the middle of summer. It was probably in the 80s, but it was pouring rain. So while we were running by all these things, there was absolutely no one else there. So if you can plan it so that it's really raining wherever you are, that may be an added benefit. But we had a blast running through the rain, and we had the city almost to ourselves. So my guide, he was a pacer actually for some races, and so he pushed me at the end because he knew that I was training for a marathon. And at the end of the run, he did a pacing for me at the pace that I had wanted to run the marathon that I was training for. And we just had a blast. It was just so much fun. We had so much of a blast that I forgot to give him a tip, but it wasn't necessary. And if you're American, you know about tipping, and if you're not, in a lot of countries, that's just not a thing. And I reached out to the person who arranged the tour, and she said, totally fine. They're not expecting tips, but it was just an amazing experience. So if you are in a new city and you want to combine sightseeing and running, I highly recommend trying a running tour. Now, the way they have it set up, I was able to book a private tour. You can do it with just you and somebody else that you know. You can also book it so that there might be, I want to say, up to 6 other people. And in that case, you're going to want to know your pacing and paces and things like that. I didn't want to have to worry about any of that, so I booked a private tour. But however you do it, I highly, highly recommend it. It was amazing. So out of all my recommendations and all my tips for running on vacation, that would be the main one: is go run tours, go to the link and see if there's something even in your own city. I mean, why not, right? But if you're going to a destination, see if they have tours available there. It's a unique experience. You can hear all about the local stuff. You'll see things you wouldn't normally see, and you're getting your run in. So definitely check out the links, especially if you're going to be going on vacation anytime soon, and have fun getting that run in another place. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you know another runner who could benefit from today's topic, go ahead and share it. Do you have any running questions? You can ask me. Email me at sherry@wrinkledrunner.com, and if I can't answer your question, I will do the research to find the answer and share it with you. The questions I get from listeners like you help me develop episodes, so please don't be shy. You can sign up for my once-a-month newsletter using the link provided so that you can have all the Wrinkled Runner resources from the past month all in one place. I also have opened up my virtual coaching in addition to coaching one-on-one with those in the Buffalo, New York area. So head to my coaching page on the Wrinkled Runner website, which I will, of course, link to, and check out how we may be able to work together. Until next Monday, thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the run.